synagogue is to be profaned, then even the benediction which I, in all loyalty and forgiveness, caused to be said for the recovery of the President of the Mahamad is to be null, a mockery in the sight of the Holy One, blessed be He." The President tottered into his reading chair. "How much did you vow on my behalf?" £5. The President precipitately drew out a pocket book and extracted a crisp Bank of England note. "Give it to the Chancellor," he breathed, exhausted. "I am punished," quoth Manasseh plaintively as he placed it in his bosom. "I should have vowed 10 for you." And then he bowed himself out. In like manner did he collect other contributions that day from Sephardic celebrities, pointing out that now a foreign Jew, Yankele to wit, had been admitted to their communion, it behoved them to show themselves at their best. What a bad effect it would have on Yankele if a Sephardi was seen to vow with impunity! First impressions were everything, and they could not be too careful. It would not do for Yankele to circulate contumelious reports of them among his kin. Those who remonstrated with him over his extravagance he reminded that he only had one daughter, and he drew their attention to the favourable influence his example had had on the Sunday receipts. Not a man of those who came after him in the reading had ventured to offer half-crowns. He had fixed the standard in gold, for that day at least, and who knew what noble emulation he had fired for the future? Every man who yielded to Manasseh's eloquence was a step to reach the next, for Manasseh made a list of the donors and paraded it reproachfully before those who had yet to give. Withal, the most obstinate resistance met him in some quarters. One man, a certain Rodriguez, inhabiting a mansion in Finsbury Circus, was positively rude. "If I came in a carriage, you'd soon pull out your £10 note for the synagogue," sneered Manasseh, his blood boiling. "Certainly I would," admitted Rodriguez, laughing, and Manasseh shook off the dust of his threshold in disdain. By reason of such rebuffs, his collection for the day only reached about £30, inclusive of the value of some depreciated Portuguese bonds which he good-naturedly accepted as though at par. Disgusted with the meanness of mankind, da Costa's genius devised more drastic measures. Having carefully locked up the proceeds of Sunday's operations, and indeed nearly all his loose cash, in his safe, for, to avoid being put to expense, he rarely carried money on his person unless he gathered it en route, he took his way to Bishopsgate Within, to catch the stage for Clapton. The day was bright, and he hummed a festive synagogue tune as he plodded leisurely with his stick along the bustling narrow pavements, bordered by costers' barrows at one edge, and by jagged houses overhung by grotesque signboards at the other, and thronged by cits in worsted hose. But when he arrived at the inn he found the coach had started. Nothing concerned, he ordered a post-chaise in a supercilious manner, criticising the horses, and drove to Clapton in style, drawn by a pair of spanking steeds to the music of the postilion's horn. Very soon they drew out of the blocked roads with their lumbering procession of carts, coaches, and chairs, and into the open country, green with the fresh verdure of spring. The chaise stopped at the Red Cottage, a pretty villa whose facade was covered with Virginian creeper that blushed in the autumn. Manasseh was surprised at the taste with which the lawn was laid out in the Italian style, with grottos and marble figures. The householder, hearing the windings of the horn, conceived himself visited by a person of quality, and sent a message that he was in the hands of his hairdresser and would be down in less than half an hour. This was a piece with Manasseh's information concerning the man, a certain Belasco, emulous of the great fops, an amateur of satin waistcoats and novel shoestrings, and even said to affect a spying-glass when he showed at Vauxhall. Manasseh had never seen him, not having troubled to go far afield, but from the handsome appurtenances of the hall and the staircase he augured the best. The apartments were even more to his liking. They were oak panelled and crammed with the most expensive objects of art and luxury. The walls of the drawing-room were frescoed, and from the ceiling depended a brilliant lustre, with 7 spouts for illumination. Having sufficiently examined the furniture, Manasseh grew weary of waiting, and betook himself to Belasco's bedchamber. "You will excuse me, Mr. Belasco," he said as he entered through the half-open door, "but my business is urgent." The young dandy, who was seated before a mirror, did not look up, but replied,
"Have a care, sir. You well nigh startled my hairdresser."
"Far be it from me to willingly discompose an artist," replied Manasseh drily, "though from the elegance of the design I venture to think my interruption will not make a hairbreadth's difference. But I come on a matter which the son of Benjamin Belasco will hardly deny is more pressing than his toilette."
"Nay, nay, sir. What can be more momentous?"
"The Synagogue," said Manasseh austerely.
"Pah! What are you talking of, sir?"
And he looked up cautiously for the first time at the picturesque figure.
"What does the Synagogue want of me? I pay my finta, and every bill the rascals send me. Monstrous fine sums, too, egad."
"But you never go there."
"No, indeed. A man of fashion cannot be everywhere. Wouts and Wigotti play the deuce with one's time."
"What a pity," mused Manasseh ironically. "One misses you there. 'Tis no edifying spectacle, a slovenly rabble with none to set the standards of taste." The pale-faced beau's eyes lit up with a gleam of interest.
"Oh, the clods!" he said. "You should yourself be a buck of the eccentric school by your dress, but I stick to the old tradition of elegance."
"You had better stick to the old tradition of piety," quoth Manasseh. "Your father was a saint, you are a sinner in Israel. Return to the Synagogue and herald your return by contributing to its finances. It has made a bad debt, and I am collecting the money to reimburse it." The young exquisite yawned.
"I know not who you may be," he said at length, "but you are evidently not one of us. As for the Synagogue, I am willing to reform its dress, but demned if I will give a shilling more to its finances. Let your slovenly rabble of tradesmen play the piper. I cannot afford it."
"You cannot afford it?"
"No. You see, I have such extravagant tastes."
"But I give you the opportunity for extravagance," expostulated Manasseh. "What greater luxury is there than that of doing good?"
"Confound it, sir, I must ask you to go," said Beau Belasco coldly. "Do you not perceive that you are disconcerting my hairdresser?"
"I could not abide a moment longer under this profane, if tasteful, roof," said Manasseh, backing sternly toward the door. "But I would make one last appeal to you for the sake of the repose of your father's soul to forsake your evil ways."
"Be hanged to you for a meddler," retorted the young blood. "My money supports men of genius and taste. It shall not be frittered away on a pack of frusty shopkeepers."
The Schnorrer drew himself up to his full height. His eyes darted fire. "Farewell, then," he hissed in terrible tones. "You will make the third at grace." He vanished. The dandy started up, full of vague alarm, forgetting even his hair in the mysterious menace of that terrifying sibilation.
What do you mean?"
he cried. "I mean," said Manasseh, reappearing at the door, "that since the world was created only 2 men have taken their clothes with them to the world to come. One was Korah, who was swallowed down. The other was Elijah, who was borne aloft. It is patent in which direction the third will go." The sleeping chord of superstition vibrated under Manasseh's dexterous touch. "Rejoice, O young man, in your strength," went on the beggar. But a day will come when only the corpse watchers will perform your